Okay, so it's mantra 7 is here. I'll recite it. Yasmin sarvani bhutani atmaiva bhudvijanato tatra ko mohaka shoka ekatvam anupashyata. One who always sees all living entities as spiritual sparks, in quality one with the Lord, becomes a true knower of things. What then can be illusion or anxiety for him? One who sees all living entities as spiritual sparks, in quality one with the Lord, becomes a true knower of things. What then can be illusion or anxiety for him? Mantra 7 continues describing the consciousness of the Mahabhagavata, which was introduced in Mantra 6. So let's refresh our memories here. Mantra 6 said, "He who sees everything in relation to the Supreme Lord, who sees all living entities as his parts and parcels, and who sees the Supreme Lord within everything, never hates anything or any being." Right? So this was about the vision of the Mahabhagavat. After understanding the nature of the Lord, the Isopanisad describes the vision of the Mahabhagavat. Now in this text, it's saying again, uh, now a little bit more from this point of view of the spirit soul, that seeing all living entities as spiritual sparks and seeing them in quality one with the Lord becomes a true knower of things. So then it's saying, what then can be illusion or anxiety for him? So the result of this knowledge that all things are in quality one with the Lord, their Satchit Ananda, leads one to a state of freedom from anxiety and suffering. Mantra 7 continues Mantra 6, and the theme of Mantra 7 is as follows. Spiritually, everyone is the same as the Lord in quality and interest. Spiritually, everyone is the same as the Lord in quality and interest. In Mantra 7, the pure devotee sees all spirit souls as having the same qualities as the Lord. On the spiritual platform, the living entities and the Supreme Lord share not only the same spiritual nature, but also the same interest. Just as a family or nation has a common interest, that Supreme Person becomes a center of enjoyment and activities for all the individual spirit souls, and the Lord enjoys Himself in their association. Within this highest realization of spiritual activities, there's no illusion or anxiety. So, in many verses in the Bhagavatam, you will find a description of the oneness of the Supreme Lord, how the Lord is one with the living beings. And you'll find many descriptions, many verses on the difference between the Lord and the living being. Sorry, message. And these contradictions are very difficult to resolve, because it seems like they're a contradiction and they shouldn't um, coexist. And so the impersonalists, they only focus on the verses that talk about the oneness. And those who are personalists, they highlight the verses about difference. But Shastra should always be studied in context. When we look at both verses together, when we see all these verses in one context, then we see, well, we have to resolve this contradiction. And how do we resolve the contradiction? Prabhupada resolves it so perfectly based on the Goswamis, the Acharyas, that this is a oneness in quality, but a difference in quantity. So a difference in quantity, but if there's a oneness in nature, a oneness in quality, and this oneness in quality is our most essential point that's being made here. There's oneness in terms of a spiritual nature. There's oneness in terms of desire. There's oneness in terms of interest. So this oneness is due to one's qualitative oneness with Krishna. On the material platform, there's always a clash of interests, both individually and collectively, resulting in anxiety and lamentation. So why does oneness in interest, why is this oneness free us from anxiety? Because on the material platform, there's difference of purpose, interest. So there's always anxiety and lamentation. The only solution is to have a common center. The only common center for all living beings is a supreme person from whom everything is emanating. By placing him at the center of our activities, we enjoy an eternal life of bliss and knowledge in a loving relationship with him. By placing him at the center of our activities, we enjoy an eternal life of bliss and knowledge in loving relationship with him. So nice, huh? And this Isopanisad is such a philosophical text. But when a pure devotee explains it, when Prabhupada explains it, he brings bhakti into it. And with this philosophy, he even explains the highest, most intimate, exalted devotional truths of the Rasa Leela. Just think. This is Prabhupada. We think, oh, the Isopanisad is going to be boring. It's a philosophy text. But he makes it, he makes us realize how there's bhakti in everything. He makes it so juicy and tasteful. So here in the purport, this is what Prabhupada writes. Here in the material world, there's always a clash between different individual beings, because here the proper center of enjoyment is missed. The real center of enjoyment is the Supreme Lord, who is the center of the sublime and spiritual rasa dance. So in the material world, there's no center, so there's always clashes. In the spiritual world, there's a center, and that center is shown in the rasa dance, where Krishna is always in the center. We are all meant to join him and enjoy life with one transcendental interest, and without any clash. That is the highest platform of spiritual interest. And as soon as one realizes this perfect form of oneness, there can be no question of illusion, moha, or lamentation, shoka. So nice, huh? We are all meant to join him and enjoy life with one transcendental interest and without any clash. It's our choice. If we simply want to align ourselves with Krishna, then there's no suffering, no pain that's left for us in this world. But we don't want to. We want to pursue our own interests, our own separate interests. And because of that, there's always clashes. All living entities are spiritual, one in quality with the Supreme Lord. Srila Prabhupada gives the example of sparks in relation to the fire. So the Uttamadhikari sees oneness in the sense of everything being the energy of the Lord. There is and is not a difference, but the oneness cannot be overlooked. Srila Prabhupada makes the point that this verse is explaining the perfection of Krishna consciousness. Wow. If a philosopher read this verse, they would be like, okay, what is the philosophy here? And just miss the whole point. And here, Prabhupada is saying that this verse is explaining the perfection of Krishna consciousness. You see, everything in relationship with the Lord, specifically to see ourselves in relation to the Lord, right? If we feel we are separate from the Lord, then how can we see other things in relation to the Lord? Realizing that we are one with the Lord in nature, in qualities, and in purpose. We are meant to be eternally happy. We are naturally meant to partake in that happiness of Krishna. Just like Krishna is a supreme enjoyer, we're also meant to enjoy. But we have forgotten that connection, and therefore we're trying to enjoy separate from Krishna. So Prabhupada, in many places, he said that Krishna consciousness does not mean a lack of love or a lack of enjoyment, but rather Krishna consciousness is teaching us how to love and how to enjoy. It's actually teaching us how we can truly love. We can't love, but unless but if we take shelter of Krishna, then we can actually love. But we are one with the Lord, but then we have to be careful of not making the mistake of thinking that I am the Lord. Srila Prabhupada explains in a lecture on this verse, if one is 100% one with the Supreme Lord, then how he can come under the control of Maya? This question they cannot answer. The spark separated from the fire loses its fiery quality. Most in ignorance, less in passion. And in goodness, it is most manifest. The living entities can possess up to about 80% of the qualities of the Lord in minute quantity. He possesses them all in full. So we say one in quality, but even in quality, we don't possess all the qualities. 80% maximum. Krishna has 64 qualities, and a jiva can maximum have 50 qualities, right? It's described in the Nectar of Devotion. You may remember. Maximum, like if you're Lord Brahma, you can get 50 qualities. But most of us have like 5 or 6. So, but in our currently right now, but in our perfected state, once we become a pure devotee, we can get up to, Prabhupada is saying, 80% of the qualities of the Lord. But even that in minute quantity, very important, minute quantity. And 20% only he can have. So no one can play the flute like Krishna. Even Mahavishnu cannot play the flute like Krishna. Therefore, Krishna is Krishna. There's 4 qualities that even Krishna's expansions do not possess. One of them is playing the flute. The other is the Madhurya Ras. They don't exhibit, no form of the Lord exhibits the rasa of himself with the gopis in the way that Krishna does. There is Swakiya, there is the rasa of Lakshmi Narayan, but not the Parakiya. Then there's Krishna's sweetness, and then I think it's Krishna's beauty. So there's these 4 things that cannot be replicated by anyone, even his expansions cannot do it. Even when he comes as Lord Ram, he cannot do it. Even as Lord Narsingha, he cannot do it. Only Krishna has these 4 qualities among the 64. So they have up to, you could say, 92% or something, 93% of all the qualities. And then, the living beings, they have up to 50%, not 50, sorry, up to 50 qualities. So different amounts of qualities are manifest in Krishna's different expansions, in Krishna's energies. But Krishna is full, right? We have some qualities to some degree, but Krishna exhibits those same qualities in an unlimited degree. We are meant for enjoyment, and always seek it. It is the nature of the soul, Ananda, but in the wrong way, because we're making the wrong centers. Here in the material world, there's always a clash between different individual beings, because here the proper center of enjoyment is missed. And this image is so nice. It illustrates the point so well, that in a river where there's raining or rocks being thrown in, there's so many circles, so many centers. Center here, thousands of different centers. And this is the material world. We all have our different centers. We all get confused. We're all, clashing with one another. All these circles you see, they're all clashing with one another because there's different centers. But the spiritual world means, and the spiritual world is so nice because there's one center and everyone is surrounding that one beautiful center. The real center of enjoyment is the Supreme Lord. We are all meant to join him and enjoy life with one transcendental interest and without any clash. So Radhashtami is coming up, and the reason we worship Srimati Radharani is because her only center of enjoyment is Krishna. Her only center of worship, Radha, comes from the same root as Aradhana. And Aradhana means to worship. So Radha teaches us how to worship. Radharani, Srimati Radharani teaches us how to love Krishna, how to make Krishna the real center of our enjoyment, and how to join him and enjoy life only in his transcendental interest. The Father extends himself through his children and maintains them in order to derive pleasure. If the children obey the Father's will, family affairs will run smoothly with one interest and a pleasing atmosphere. Oh, Father, he's so practical. He gives such a nice analogy that everyone can understand. Of course, in the material world, I'm also a father, so this analogy breaks down at a certain point, because the father can be imperfect, and the father can be, sometimes even cruel, and the father can be, materialistic and try to draw the children away from Krishna, or the family away from Krishna. But the idea is that even in the material context, if the father is nice, then we see in the culture of India that people were always together. There were big extended families, and the elderly father or the grandfather everyone would listen to him. And so all the brothers and the sisters and the children and all these things could live very happily. In our modern culture, all over the world, the moment, even before 18, the moment they're teenagers, everyone is doing their own thing in their own computers and their own phones and their own groups and their own parties. And so there's very little unity and love in the family. So we must have this love and unity on the basis of the spiritual fathership of Krishna. The Supreme Atma or Paramatma alone maintains all the individual minute beings, for the Supreme Lord wants to derive pleasure out of their affection. So, how is it that Srimati Radharani is there, right? The Chaitanya Charitamrita describes that Krishna and Radha are actually one, that they're originally one. In essence, in Tattva, they are one. Radha is simply the reflection, is not even more than reflection, is simply the image of Krishna in feminine form. But they become two. Krishna expands himself. He thinks, what is life without someone else? It's very boring. So he expands himself. He makes himself into another person. That is Srimati Radharani. His most internal potency, Hladini Shakti, That is Srimati Radharani. So he expands himself first and foremost as Srimati Radharani, as his Hladini Shakti, for Hladini, for pleasure, for enjoyment. In the same way, then, he expands himself into millions and trillions and unlimited number of minute living beings, so he can have a relationship of love with them. It's just like, again, the family example Prabhupada gives, that there's one wife, right? There's one husband, and that is a very, you could say, prominent relationship. The kind of the key relationship from which then there's so many children. There can be, thousands of children, right? So in the same way, no one can be like Srimati Radharani, right? No one can surpass her. Her position, her place is unmatched by anyone, because she is the supreme mother of this entire universe. Prabhupada described so many lectures we were hearing in preparing for Radhashtami, and Prabhupada describes how Srimati Radharani, in the material world, when we forget our mother, our original mother, Srimati Radharani, who is the most loving and wonderful mother, when we somehow or the other, out of our unlimited foolishness, turn away from her and forget her, then she manifests in this world as Durga Devi, Parvati, Durga, Kali. This is like, when we dismiss the affection of the mother, then we see the chastisement of the mother, right? The children, sometimes they need the chastisement of the mother. So then she comes as Durga to chastise us. But again, she's the loving mother. When the mother chastises, then she is actually drawing us back, like Prakriti. Like Prakriti is nature, and her purpose is to bring the souls back to their good sense. Maya, she comes as Maya, Mahamaya. And this material Maya, the root of Maya is Ma, which means mother. And Maya is a creative power that creates like mother creates. So she gives us punishment also like a mother gives punishment. It ultimately brings us back to the right path. It's not for the purpose of destroying, but the purpose of uplifting. So this whole material experience uplifts us, and that's why eventually every soul must return back to Krishna, because it is Maya. It is like how a mother creates. It will not damn us for eternity. So Krishna creates all these living beings for the purpose of pleasure, of reciprocation, of love. And he's teaching us that love through Srimati Radharani. She is the one who actually shows us how to love Krishna. She's the one who draws us to Krishna and corrects us in Krishna's service. And why is he doing all of this? To exchange affection and love with all the living beings. This loving, affectionate exchanges. And that's the end of mantra 7. So let's try to do maybe one more really quickly, and then we'll end. Saparyagach chukramakayam avranam. Saparyagach chukramakayam avranam. Ashnaviram shuddham apapavidham. Kavir manishi paribhusvayambhur. Yatha tatyatorthan vyadat shashvatibhya samabhya. Yatha tatyotarthan vyadat shashvatibhya samabhya. Wow. Such a person must factually know the greatest of all, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is unembodied, omniscient, beyond reproach, without veins, pure and uncontaminated. The self-sufficient philosopher who has been fulfilling everyone's desire since time immemorial. What a verse. The Supreme Personality of God, who is unembodied, omniscient, beyond reproach, without veins, pure and uncontaminated. The self-sufficient philosopher who has been fulfilling everyone's desire since time immemorial. So now Prabhupada explains this. As you can imagine, he is very keen on explaining what does unembodied mean. Because on one hand, he is the philosopher, he is the personality of Godhead, yet he is unembodied. Mantra 8 describes some qualities of the Lord as he is known by the Mahabhagavata described in Mantra 6 and 7. So how does this Mahabhagavata know Krishna, and what ways does he know Krishna? The Transcendental Lord is fulfilling all our desires accordingly. Mantra 8 further explains the transcendental qualities of the Supreme Person as he reciprocates with all living entities, according to our desires and activities. The Lord is not limited by any material qualities. Thus, he may expand his form into innumerable forms to perfectly reciprocate with all living beings according to our desires to please him, or even hide his form from those who wish to forget him. In this mature world, he is fulfilling our desires according to our qualifications and according to our I missed it. In this mature world, he is fulfilling our desires according to our qualifications and activities, or according to the law of karma, even though such material desires may cause us pain. But on the spiritual platform, we simply desire to please the Lord, and he helps us. So actually, another thing I forgot to mention, that even Bhumi, this earth, is said that Bhumi is an expansion of Srimati Radharani, right? So, so she even creates this world because Bhumi is such a place that it's on this earth that we can fulfill life's purpose of realizing Krishna. Right? There's so many holy places on Mother Earth. The pathways, you could say, the channels to get out of this material world are given on Bhumi, on earth. And this is why when we hear in all the narrations in the Bhagavatam and the scriptures, when Bhumi has some trouble, when she is running to the Lord, please protect me, she goes to Shvetadvip, or someone is chasing her in the form of, a goddess, then Krishna immediately responds. Because Bhumi is Srimati Radharani. He cannot say no. And how kind she is. She's created this earth so that we can develop our devotional service to Krishna. See, in the other planets, like the heavenly planets, they can see Krishna, right? They regularly see him, but they cannot develop their devotional service. There's so much pleasure there that it's just like, La La Land. It's like Disney World. It's too much pleasure there. And they can't really earnestly call out to Krishna. Earth is so special because here we have the right amount of suffering where we can earnestly call out to Krishna. Like Queen Kunti says, Janmaishvarya Shuta Shribhir, Edamana Madapuman, Nevar Hatti Vidhatum Vai, Tvama Kinchana Gocharam. That only when we're Akinchana Gochara, only when we are fully 100% done with material life, we are emptied out by this whole material progress thing and this whole material aspiration. Can we approach Krishna with feeling? When we've lost our faith in this material world and our faith is only in Krishna, can we approach him with feeling? When we're materially exhausted, akinchana gochara, materially exhausted. Prabhupada uses his words so perfectly. I was thinking of the word, what does he use? And it's materially exhausted. When literally we're materially exhausted. That point of material exhaustion does not come in the heavenly planets. The point of material exhaustion does not come in the hellish planets, because the suffering is so great that we cannot think of anything other than the suffering. But on earth, we can actually recognize the suffering and turn away from it, from material life, and 100% dedicate our life to Krishna. Here we see Dhruva, right? he becomes materially exhausted and he becomes fully attached to Krishna. And his desire initially is for the kingdom. So Krishna comes to fulfill that desire because initially he's not materially exhausted. He thinks that he can enjoy life by becoming a great king, a great master of all living beings. So he's not materially exhausted. Even as sometimes as sannyasis or gurus, we cannot, we can not be materially exhausted because initially someone may have the desire to become a great spiritual leader, to have many followers. It says, Lord Chaitanya says, Nadhanam na janam na sundarim kavitam va jagadishaye. Mama janmani janmarishwari bhavatad bhaktir haitakitvayi. That the desire for dhanam, wealth, janam, high parentage, sundarim, and then the desire for followers. So, so that's the most subtle one, that when we come to spiritual life, and this is with all of us, we still have that slight desire to increase the number of followers. That's a whole social media, right? The number of followers. They literally call them followers, right? And we take it now as a technical term, but what does that word mean? Followers. That I want people who are following me. How many followers do you have on Facebook, on Instagram, etc.? And someone has 5 million and they feel very satisfied, like they attain the perfection of life. So that desire can stay there within us. And once even that desire is purified, that we're completely materially exhausted, that we have no desire for anything other than Krishna, then Krishna immediately reciprocates and gives us and fulfills our transcendental desires. Then he gives us his pure love. But until then, he'll keep fulfilling our material desires because that's what we are desiring. I was just hearing the pastime of Kolavecha Sridhar. And Kolavecha Sridhar is such an intimate devotee of Lord Chaitanya. He's such an exalted devotee. He would all night be chanting and crying while he chanted and dancing. Loudly he would be chanting, almost howling all night out of spiritual ecstasy of separation from Krishna. But the Chaitanya Bhagavat especially mentions that no one even knew that he was a devotee. His spiritual life was so hidden, no one knew that he was a devotee. Rather, the neighbors would just curse him because they thought that he's some, he's howling out of hunger all night. And that's why he's making noise. So they would throw earthen pots on top of his courtyard or something, on top of him, just thinking that what a useless soul he is. He was very poor. He was just a banana seller, very simple banana leaf seller. He would sell banana leaves. How much can you earn from that? A few rupees here and there. And he would take half of what he would earn out of those few rupees, and with those half, he would worship Mother Ganga. And with the remaining half, he would maintain himself and his family. But no one knew that he was such a great devotee. And then sometimes, so he would continue in this way, and year after year. And then Lord Chaitanya himself personally came to meet Kolavecha Sridhar. And he came incognito as a Brahman boy. And Kolavecha Sridhar, due to Lord Chaitanya's Yogamaya and his desire, he doesn't recognize Lord Chaitanya. So initially, Lord Chaitanya would come to his shop and haggle for bananas and banana leaves. He would say, your prices are too high. And he's charging like 2 rupees for it. You should give these to me for 1 rupee. And he would then say, look, there's so many banana sellers. You go to some other banana seller because I don't need those. I mean, I hardly make any profit to begin with. And because of his transcendental nature, Kolavecha Sridhar didn't like to haggle. So he already would give the best price. Everyone knew this is the cheapest banana seller in town. So he didn't like to haggle. He said, no need. I don't need this money or to sell this. Just go to the banana seller across the street. And Lord Chaitanya would say, no, I only want to buy bananas from you because you are the you are the banana seller in town and I must get them from you. And he said, oh, please just leave me alone. And then Lord Chaitanya would snatch some of the bananas and run away with them. And then Kulavecha Sridhar would run after him, trying to get those bananas back. And Kulavecha Sridhar couldn't understand why this Brahmin boy would keep coming and harassing him. Yet he would think that somehow or the other, whenever I interact with this Brahmin boy, I feel such great pleasure within my heart. So here's a person who has no interest other than Krishna, and he feels so much ecstasy in chanting the holy name. So he naturally is not interested or gets attracted by anything or anyone material. So he's not attracted by the people of this world, and normally he would just like turn off, and it's like even if he stole the bananas, Pulavecha Sridhar wouldn't would allow them to steal the bananas. But somehow his transcendental senses were so attracted to Lord Chaitanya that though he would think that he's harassing me and he's taking all my bananas and he keeps on uh, trying to um, debate with me on the price and bargain with me for the best price. Somehow I get so transcendental pleasure by doing this that he couldn't also leave Lord Chaitanya's association. And then one day, Lord Chaitanya reveals his true identity and tells Kulavecha Sridhar that you are eternally my eternal devotee, and I've come here just to reveal myself to you. So the problem is that we are continuously forgetting. We forget that Krishna is actually there and that our purpose in this spiritual life, in this spiritual process, is actually to attain the Lord and nothing else. Right? We forget that principle, and it's very easy to forget that even Bharat Maharaj, who was on the level of Bhava Bhakti, just a step away from Prema Bhakti, even he momentarily forgets about that. And he thinks that the purpose of his spiritual life is to take care of the deer and be their protector, be their guide. And in this way, he lost his spiritual life for 2 lifetimes, for 1 lifetime, and then had to come back in another lifetime. So it gets delayed by 2 lifetimes. So our desires, we should be very careful in analyzing our desires, in reorienting our desires every day. Our desires must be focused on Krishna. That what is my goal? My goal is not anything else other than pleasing and connecting with Krishna, because then everything else will happen automatically. If Krishna is pleased, if I become a devotee of Krishna, if Krishna reveals himself to me, then that is the goal of life. Everything else will end, will vanish very soon. Even my preaching will vanish very soon. Even my service will vanish very soon. But the relationship of love between the Lord and the devotee, that never vanishes. That will stay with me for eternity. The mood of being a servant will stay. The service itself may change. But being a servant, that will be eternal. Jivera Sarupa Hoy Krishna Nitya Das. I'll always be the Das, or the servant of the Lord. So, this is the benediction here, that he has been fulfilling everyone's desires since time immemorial. That is one of his qualities. What are his other qualities? Krishna's qualities are that he has a spiritual body, completely transcendental. Prabhupada describes the relationship between Radha and Krishna is completely spiritual, because Krishna's body is spiritual, Radharani's body is spiritual, and their dancing together is like a person dancing with their own reflection. There's nothing wrong if a person dances with their own reflection. It's most natural. So similarly, Radha and Krishna's relationship is one that is completely different from our experience in the material world. He's omniscient. He cannot be subjected to criticism. So someone might think I could criticize Krishna. Says no, he cannot be subject to criticism. So he does no wrong. No veins. He has no veins. What does this mean? Krishna does not have a body. No, his body is simple. meaning that it is indestructible. It is the most essential, simple entity. You cannot break it into further parts because it is eternal. Therefore, it is unchangeable. It is like the soul. It is unbreakable. It is a soul. It is a spiritual form. We are also spiritual forms. So why is a soul unbreakable, insoluble? Because you cannot break it down further. It is pure and uncontaminated. It's not material. So unembodied means no material body. Unembodied means no material body. Sometimes the scriptures say Krishna's no qualities. Prabhupada says that means no material qualities. He has a body, it's a spiritual body. He has qualities, but spiritual qualities. But he has no body and no qualities like we know it. And the scriptures are speaking to us. So they say no material qualities, no material body. And finally, he is a self-sufficient knower who fulfills everyone's desires. He is a self-sufficient knower who fulfills everyone's desires. We see how different the Lord's form is from the living entities. There's no difference between his body and himself. The deity is an example of such a form. There's no difference between the deity and Krishna. It's not like there's a soul inside the deity. The deity itself is Krishna. We also, our spiritual body is a spiritual soul. But in the material world, we have a material body and a soul. Similarly, Krishna has an unlimited spiritual form. And that form is non-different than his soul because it is a spiritual form. He can only be appreciated through devotion and reveals himself according to the degree of one's devotion. So nice. He reveals himself according to the degree of one's devotion. So Aindra Prabhu, who was in Vrindavan, the great chanter of the holy name, he used to say that the spiritual life is a gradual process, and we can make it as gradual as we like. So it's a gradual process, but then he's using reverse psychology. We can make it as gradual as we like. So it's the degree of our devotion. If we want to go very quickly, we can progress very quickly. If we want to progress very intensely, we can realize Krishna very quickly. The verse also makes the point that the Lord has been supplying everything since time immemorial. Srila Prabhupada gives the example of how having a certain qualification is not enough. One has to be recognized by authority. He fulfills their desires in whatever way they like, even to the point of letting them go to hell if they really want. But if they want to go back to Godhead, he helps in all respects. So people sometimes ask, why does Krishna let people suffer so much or let them go in ignorance so much? So Prabhupada in one place writes that Krishna will let the soul hit rock bottom before he uplifts them, because that is the desire of the soul. That they can keep going down until they realize that I don't want this. Like they keep feeling that I want this until they realize that I don't want this. And so many devotees in our movement had this experience. Like one devotee in London, he said that one time he was so intoxicated. He had taken so many drugs, alcohol, all these things, that he felt that that night he was going to die. And at his lowest point, he said, somehow I wasn't thinking of God, nothing, but at his lowest point, somehow from within his soul, he prayed. He said that if there's a God, then please, you show me who you are. Show me the path, because nothing can be worse than this. And the next day, he went, his friend, invited him for free food at the temple. He went to the temple in Ireland. He's Irish. Irish drink a lot, right? And so the next day he goes there, and the day that he arrived there, it was Gaur Purnima. And these were those days where people, they would go to a temple and they would just stay there. He said he went to the temple, he was like a hippie, an Irish hippie, and he just stayed there and never left. And to this day, he's a devotee. So Krishna, now he's a wonderful devotee. I mean, like very nice devotee, right? Has all pure qualities. Is so, brilliant. You see him so effulgent, such a, you wouldn't recognize him from who he was before. But Krishna let him fulfill his desires of intoxication, material life, to the ultimate point of even reaching hell. It was like hell. He was living in hell before that, before bringing him back. So the devotees of the Lord are so kind that they uplift everyone and anyone. But Krishna is more kind of just. If we desire to forget about him, then he lets us forget. If we desire to enjoy material life, he lets us go to hell. But then he will wait until we want him. And once we want him, then he shows the path. But the devotees are so kind that even if people don't want Krishna, they go and put a book in their hand and, tell them to buy the book and read it and give them association. Oops, sorry. He is self-sufficient and pure. Only he is self-sufficient. He is also so pure that impure things become purified through contact with him. Even if he appears to do something sinful, he is actually completely pure and purifying. Srila Prabhupada explains that this is the most important part of this verse. Wow. That Krishna is the most pure. No one can criticize him. When he dances with millions of gopis, he purifies the gopis. It's not that the gopis make him impure, that he is dancing with so many women. And why is that? What is the essential difference of quality between our situation, Krishna's situation? The difference is that Krishna only exhibits pure love. He never comes on the platform of lust. With the millions of gopis, they are his devotees, and he is simply wanting to please their senses by dancing with them, to please his devotees. He has no material purpose or selfish purpose to fulfill. And the same mood is of the gopis, that they have no material desire or selfish desire to fulfill. They're dancing simply to please Krishna. So it's not a relationship of exploitation. In this world, why is any form of sex life, any form of material relationship, why is it sinful? Because it is a form of exploitation. It's a form of exploitation. Summary of mantras 4 to 8. The Supreme Lord is the greatest person and possesses unique characteristics. Within him, all contradictions are resolved. The pure devotees see everything and everyone in relation to him and are therefore completely free from anxiety on the transcendental platform. By rendering devotional service in this consciousness, they realize him directly. So he resolves all contradictions. Everything is connected with him. Everything is within him. The pure devotees who see everything in relation with him are fully Krishna conscious because they see everything in relation with him and for his service. And therefore they're free of all anxiety because there's no separate purpose in mind. whatever Krishna is doing is the best. By rendering devotional service in this consciousness, they realize him directly. And you see this actually over, when we see things from a bird's eye point of view, you see that everything that Krishna is doing is okay. Everything that he's doing, we see that he had a purpose, which was not clear at that point, which may never be clear to us, but we see that Krishna has a purpose. So therefore, they are free from all anxiety. They try their best, but whatever happens, happens, because it must be Krishna's plan. He could have made things done other way. The only source of anxiety is, am I in the consciousness of seeing Krishna as the controller, the maintainer, and the director of everything? See, Krishna is known as a controller, right? We all know this. We have no problem understanding this. This is a given. Krishna is Sarva Karana Karanam. He is the controller of everything. The problem is that when we forget that we try to become controllers, right? That's the problem, that we want to be a controller. And when we try to control things too much, then we're trying to take Krishna's position, his job. And us trying to control things too much, even if we're trying to do the right thing, even in doing the right thing, if we're trying to control it too much or too attached to the outcome, then we're trying to take Krishna's role, and that brings a reaction. And that itself becomes sinful because we're not the controllers. Krishna is the controller. We need to do our devotional service, which is doing our part. We may need to say something or do something, but like we were talking last time also, but ultimately leaving it up to Krishna because he's the controller. And when we're in that mindset that, okay, it seems like a great catastrophe, it seems like things didn't happen in the way I wanted it, but that's okay because things are happening in Krishna's way. And when we are in that mindset that Krishna is the controller, then we can give up all anxiety. Then the anxiety goes away. Because this is a very deep realization that then we don't have to take things in our hands. We don't have to feel anxiety for it. And that in that state of mind, Lord Chaitanya says, then we can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly and with full attention. Because then we're not chanting and thinking about our problems and how to solve those problems, or about someone else negatively, because we are thinking of Krishna. We know Krishna is the controller. And understanding that Krishna is the controller, that is being more humble than a blade of grass, more tolerant than a tree. Because if Krishna is the controller, then I'm the humble servant. So it all comes with this verse of the Gita, Bhoktaram Yagyatapasam, Sarvaloka Maheshwaram, Suhridam Sarvabhutanam, Gyatva Mam Shantim Richati. One realizes peace when one knows that Krishna is the enjoyer and controller of all things, Bhokta. Yagyatapasam, he is the enjoyer of all the sacrifices. He is the Sarvaloka Maheshwaram, he is the Lord of all the three worlds. He is the enjoyer, Bhoktaram Yagyatapasam. Sarvaloka Maheshwaram, he is the controller, enjoyer, the Lord of all the universes. Suhridam, he is the friend of all living beings. So we may not feel that we're the controller, but we may be in anxiety as to someone else's well-being. But even that, we know that the well-being comes from our prayer to Krishna, because Krishna is the friend of all living beings. We can offer them help, but ultimately only Krishna can help them. We can do our part, but it's only if Krishna desires. So Suhridam, also realizing that everyone will not be our friend, but Krishna is a friend of all living beings, so that's perfect. Nor can we be a friend to everyone, but we can pray to Krishna and we can bring them in connection with Krishna, and that is being a friend to them. Such a person, Gyatva Mam Shantim, such a person attains peace, freedom from all anxiety. Okay, we're done. And we did 2 verses today in time. It's perfect timing. So if there's any comment or thought, reflection, we can take it now.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare
Uh,
Krishna.
I really like how you explain not to attach with the outcomes. It is easier said than done. You end up controlling, you start controlling, and I see that anxiety and fear are created when you are not attached to Krishna, when you don't give in that it is Krishna's will, what conditions you are in. So that is really wonderful. But when day-to-day practical situations, it is very difficult. You kind of feel superior sometimes, and you start controlling sometimes, and that causes anxiety and fear. But the mantra is to give in and surrender to Krishna.
Yes, Krishna's teaching in the Gita is that we must do our duty. So it's also not that we are not vigilant in doing our duty. But what does it mean doing our duty, being very attached to to doing our duty carefully, but not being a controller? What that means is we're doing our part very diligently, but we're not attached to the outcome. When we have attachment to the outcome, that means we're being a controller. So just like if there's some deviation or there's some problem in the temple, right? That's the example we can take. This is a common situation. Our duty is to say something to try to improve it. But then not being a controller means that we're not attached to the outcome. After we do our duty, we leave the result up to Krishna. And we may try again and again, like Srila Prabhupada, right? He had to translate Bhagavad Gita. And after he translates the entire book, imagine the whole Bhagavad Gita with commentary, he writes a thick volume. After that, his wife sells it for biscuits. Now, okay, she sold it for biscuits. That's not a nice thing to do. And, this is, so bad. But in terms of him, he could have seen it that, well, this is Krishna's plan. Krishna obviously doesn't want me to do this. That's why after I wrote it, he is, my wife steals it or takes it away. So Krishna must not want it, right? Because it's her, but he's seeing things from Krishna's point of view. Why would Krishna? She could have taken something else rather than his Gita. But then after that, Prabhupada goes and translates it all over again. So doing our duty even means trying multiple times, not giving up. So someone could say, well, Prabhupada was being a controller. Krishna gave him the indication it's not necessary because after he does it, his book is gone. No, that was the instruction of his spiritual master. So he had to fulfill it. And he had to keep trying. But he wasn't disturbed about the outcome. I did it, and it became, probably years of work that he put in, it was lost in water. But the outcome was never mine to begin with. So I'm just going to start all over again. And that's why Prabhupada is Prabhupada. That's why he's the pure devotee showing that example. Because he's not attached to the outcome, nor is he willing to give up. See, when we're not attached to the outcome, then what happens? We say, I'm going to take the back seat and I'm going to give up my seva, right? Isn't that what we do? So the other part of that is that not being attached generally means that we lose our attachment to be passionate about what we are doing. But we must be completely dhrida vrata, completely fixed on doing our duty. Simultaneously, we're not attached to the outcome. We're not affected by it. And that's harder said than done, right? Easier said than done.
Yeah, but yeah, Prabhu, wonderful example. Another example you gave where he had a guidance from his Guru Maharaj, so he knew the direction. Uh, and this also reminds me of the example you gave me last, like all of us last week for Uttam Adhikari, where a person, if they has a problem, he goes up and he explains everything. He does his duty, irrespective of what material, backfiring he's gonna have. And then Krishna does his Leela. That's what you explained last week. So wonderful.
Yes, yes, yes. He waits for Krishna to do his Leela also. Yes. And Prabhupada knew that perfect balance somehow because he knew when to keep pushing and also when to wait for Krishna. So there's many examples in the Leelamrit how Prabhupada knew that, okay, now we have to wait for Krishna to resolve a situation. But at other times, he knew that no, keep going forward, keep fighting, keep moving forward. And Prabhupada says, right, purity is a force. That was because he was 100%. He kept Krishna in the center. His intention was, I want to please Krishna. So Krishna from within the heart also gave him the inspiration on how to do things. So that also simultaneously we have to pray. And that's the prayer part, that we have to pray to Krishna, please give me guidance on how to proceed forward. Bhadra Krishna Prabhu, would you like to add something?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you for the wonderful class as always, Prabhu. So
Thank
to further to Mataji's point, we try to become controllers only when we start taking ownership of a particular service. So we think, oh, this is my service, nobody else can do it. That's that's kind of controlling, not allowing anybody. But in reality, no service is anyone's proprietorship. We got to do whatever service comes our way. Also, in Krishna's service, no service is small or big, whether it's cleaning the washroom or doing deity worship. Everything is equal because we are doing it for the pleasure of the Lord. So,
That's a very nice.
yeah. So this is the main point that we miss most of the time. That I should accept any service that is given to me, not that I can only do this or I like to do this. Then the problem begins.
Very nice point, Prabhu. And I really liked your first point also, that we have a feeling of ownership, that this is my service. And we see that in high stages of devotion, the devotee has possessiveness towards Krishna. So a devotee feels possessive of Krishna, and he feels possessive of being a servant of Krishna. But as you are saying, but he's not attached to a specific service. He's attached to being a servant, right? There, of course, out of spiritual attachment, there may be a feeling of attachment that this is my service for Krishna. I need to do this for Krishna because, for, 30 years, this is the service that I've been doing for him. But ultimately, like you are saying, ultimately, the feeling is that my only service is pleasing Krishna. So now after 30 years, if Krishna wants to change it, then I'm attached to pleasing Krishna and not to the specific service. Yes. Very nice point. Yes. And that's Gaurang Prabhu also said that initially we are more attached to the service and less attached to being a servant. And as we advance, we are more attached to being a servant and less attached to the service. So we're happy higher or lower service, whatever it may be. But that doesn't matter. Nice. Thank you. Om.
Hare Krishna Guruji, Dharam Pranam, Dish
Hare
Prabhupada.
Krishna.
Very nice lecture, Guruji, as usual. I have a follow-up question to the question what Mataji asked, and about the outcome and then balance between the outcome and then to stop. So you were talking about the Bhagavad Gita quote, Durda Vrata, we have to keep on going. And then how Srila Prabhupada, although his copy was, his wife took it and sold it, and it got sold. But Srila Prabhupada still wrote it again. So my question is, how or when do we know that now we have to stop? How to know when to stop? When do we know that this Krishna's plan now?
That's the question. Yes. That's the thing, that there's no formula for that. But Krishna says in the Gita, Tesham evanukam partam, aham agyanajam tam, nashimatma bhavasu jnanadipena bhashvata. To those who are continuously engaged in serving me, and the key point here is continuously, right? To them, I within the heart destroy with a shining lamp of knowledge the darkness born of ignorance. Right? So when we are engaged in serving Krishna, Krishna gives us the intelligence on how to serve him. The intelligence comes when we serve him. and when we take up a service to serve him. And this, my Guru Maharaj also said that whenever we are serving Krishna, Krishna gives us the intelligence on how to expand and perfect that service, how to continue to expand that service. So there's no book for it. We just have to do the service. And again, as you mentioned, the key thing is not to give up our service. There'll be so many problems that come in our service, so many challenges. But what does it mean not being a controller? What does it mean being undisturbed? It doesn't mean that we'll be like a stone. Things will disturb us. But the ultimate undisturbed is that in spite of the disturbances, we are continuing in our service. And that is success. When we give up our service, then we lost, right? Then it finished. So we should continue with our service. It may change, as Bhadra Krishna Prabhu said, but the service to Krishna never stops, right? And that's the quality of a mature or advanced devotee, that they don't stop. Okay, big scandal happened, big problem happened, got criticized, whatever, but I will continue serving because this is for Krishna. Krishna's in the center. Thank you.
Krishna also says Dadami Buddhi Yogatam, right?
Yes, that's a verse. Dadami Buddhi Yogam Tam, that I give the understanding by which they can come to. Very nice. Thank you for
Thank you,
bringing.
Guruji.
Okay, so Ritvik Prabhu, or please, Hare Krishna. Hare Bol. Hare Krishna.
Jai Srila Prabhupada. I had a question. When you
Yes.
said about Bhumi being Radharani, right? Would it,
Bhumi being what? Radharani.
Radharani.
Yes, yes.
And you said Krishna comes out of one call. But there's so much destruction going on in our world. All the killings of innocent souls for food and pleasure of the taste, and during wars because of power. When will Krishna come? Like, is there an exact date?
Yes, yes. So, very good question. Thank you for this nice question. So, Krishna's already come in the form of the holy name, right? Because he's observing how bad the situation is in this world. He has already come. However, because it's a material world, Krishna doesn't, just change everything. Because if he does, then the people who want to enjoy sense pleasures have taken birth in this material world. And then they have no way of trying to fulfill those desires and learning from their mistakes, right? So the king wants to remove the prison house, right? They don't want the prison. But if they remove the prison house, then those who have done wrong, how will they understand not to do that? How will they learn? So this material world is a school of hard knocks. You know the school of hard knocks? It's a school, yes, you know that, right? Where you go and you learn through experience, because those kids aren't willing to learn just by hearing. So it's a school of hard knocks, and Krishna allows that school of hard knocks to go on. Now you say, well, the world is so bad. Well, this is the final age. It's the age of Kali. It was very good for millions of years. But those souls that were left who didn't learn through so many experiences still have those base material desires. They're born in Kali Yuga. And Krishna is allowing them. At the same time, he's giving them opportunity for advancement. And that's up to us. He's appeared. How? He's appeared in the form of the holy name. He's here. It's directly accessible. He's appeared in the form of the Srimad Bhagavatam. He's appeared in the temples as a deity. He's appeared as a holy places of pilgrimage. He's appeared on every street corner as a place of worship, temples, mosques, churches. But now it's up to us if we want to walk into those places. Now it's up to us if we want to take up the process. And why is the suffering there? The suffering is there so that we want to. But in spite of that suffering, still we're not taking it seriously. So Krishna is balancing two things. He's giving us the path. At the same time, he's allowing us to fulfill our desires, so we come to it voluntarily, and he's not letting us, he won't bring us by force. We have to choose to come, and that's why the mature world is there.
It's like what Prabhupada says in the Nectar of Instruction, Shloka 1. And for the killing of the innocent souls, it reminded me of Isopanisad Sloka 3.
Mhm. Yes, that's a nice connection that you made. Very nice connection. You're very intelligent. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for joining. Okay, Haripriya, we are ready for the summary. Please take us to the conclusion.
Thank you, Prabhu. So we saw that how Supreme Lord on the living entities and the living entities share the same nature and the same spiritual interest. And Sri Rupa Goswami makes the Isopanishad so blissful because he makes it because it is a center of the rasa dance. So, like as you mentioned, that it might sound it's boring, but it is not boring because the Rupa Goswami made it so blissful, and we are meant for enjoyment and always feel it, but and we always like feel it, but in the wrong way. And Rajdhani helps us find Krishna and serve him. And the father extends himself through his children and maintains them to derive pleasure. So similarly, the supreme Atma or Paramatma alone maintains all the individual minute beings. For the Supreme Lord wants to derive pleasure out of their affection. And as you mentioned that Srimati Radharani, like Srimati Radharani is mentioned in this context because Radharani is another expansion of Krishna. And then in mantra 8 we saw that how so the Lord he fulfills our desire accordingly, and he is not limited by any means. And everything will vanish, but our relation with Krishna will stay with us life after life. And then Krishna is the supplier, and Krishna wants us first to, like as he said that he wants us to first to hit the rock and then lift it, like hit the stone and then lift it, because like Krishna wants us first to feel the material world and suffer, because otherwise we will not understand the Lord, like we will not understand why we serve him. So
Krishna
first he
allows
wants.
us. Krishna doesn't want, just a slight, very good point that you bring up. Krishna doesn't want that we do that, but Krishna allows us to hit rock bottom so that the soul can do what it wants to, and then, but allows us so that eventually we will ask for a shelter, right? So Krishna doesn't want us, but Krishna allows us. Yes, good point.
Okay. And then we saw that Krishna's love never comes on the platform of lust, but always stays on the level of pure love, even though he has millions of gopis to enjoy, and he only does dance and that things with the gopis so that he could satisfy the gopis. Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you so much, Haripriya. Thank you for the wonderful summary. Hare Krishna. Mother Krishna Prabhu, would you like to?
So, yeah, so Prabhu, when you mentioned that Krishna allows us to hit rock bottom, even though he doesn't want us to do that, can we say that he is allowing us to execute our free will that he has given us? Does that become the part of the free will?
Yes, he wants, ultimately, love means freedom. So we have to freely come to Krishna. So therefore, he knows that as long as we keep trying to satisfy our senses, we don't turn towards him, right? We're not. So he allows us to become fully frustrated. Rock bottom means fully frustrated with material life, so that we turn to Krishna with full earnestness, like that Irish devotee. Or like people go through difficult relationships, horrible relationships, and then they become so disenchanted with material life. And then they say, okay, what's the real relationship? That's Krishna. So that he gives us. Yes. Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you, everyone. We will continue next week, just like normal. And
Hare Krishna.
thank you for your association.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Prabhu.
Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare
Dharam
Thank you,
Pranam.
Hare
Prabhuji.
Krishna,
Thank you so
Dhanapranam.
much
Hare
for the
Krishna,
wonderful
Prabhu.
lecture.
Thank you for
Jai
that.
Baba Vaishnav
Hare
Vaishnav
Krishna, Prabhu.
ki jai.
Thank you.
Dandavad Pranam, Prabhuji.
Thank you.